are talking about level of satisfaction. We are talking about elasticity of demand. You demanded a good and you supply a good. Those are household and firm level. The firm level, we are talking about production. We are talking about cost when you are going into production, factors of production, how to make profits, how to maximize profits, how to minimize costs. Those are analysis at the firm level. Okay. Now, when we come to the macro, we are talking about how productive the entire country is, the GDP of the country. The micro level, last semester, we deal with prices of goods and services. When prices increase, what will be the effect on demand? We have done those ones at firm level. But then at the macro level, when we are dealing with price, we are talking about the general price level. That's where we talk about level of inflation. Whether in general prices are increasing or prices are what? Reducing. I'm sure by close of this not this particular lecture, not today's lecture, but by the time we finish the macroeconomics for this semester, we will be able to understand why prices of things don't reduce, okay, but we say inflation is reducing. Or better still, you see that inflation is reducing, but then prices are still increasing. Does it make sense? Because as a student or as economic student, the government is saying inflation is reducing, but you go to market, prices are still increasing. Those who are making those arguments, are they right? Or you have an explanation to give to them? By close of this, not this particular, but close of what we have to do at this semester, I'm sure by first, second, third lecture, we will delve so much into what is meant by inflation and the related issues with it. So basically, that's just an overview of what we have to do in the semester. It's going to be a macro analysis. And like I said, you need not to be worried that even the micro it was difficult, so the macro is going to be difficult. No, macro may rather be relatively easier than the micro. Okay, so just make up your mind that you're going to make A or B plus at least in this particular lecture. Okay, so the lesson outcome, so by the end of this particular one, what we are doing today, you should be able to define what the macroeconomics is by having a simple introduction. I know you know what the macroeconomics is, and explain the difference between the microeconomics and macroeconomics. The brief introduction should have given you what is meant by macro and what is meant by micro by now. Then lastly, you should be able to explain the main goals of what macroeconomic policies. Okay. I don't know if you guys listen to news, but then we call something macroeconomic indicators. Going into election, you realize that a lot of politicians now start to talk about economic issues. They talk about exchange rate, they talk about unemployment rate, they talk about GDP growth rate, they talk about inflation. Okay. So especially inflation and exchange rate becomes mostly like political talk anytime election is approaching. Okay, so when we talk about macroeconomic indicators, basically we are talking about unemployment rate. It's one of the indicators. We are talking about the growth rate, one of the indicators. We are talking about the exchange rate, okay, inflation rate. So those are major indicators that we use to actually judge if the economy is doing well or is doing badly. That is the reason why we have this kind of famous statement by our own Dr. Baumia, who says that when you are playing propaganda, the exchange rate will expose. So you may go singing around that the economy is solid, the economy is that, the economy is good, everybody is happy, the economy is strong. But then by the virtue of how the exchange rate is making wave, you can tell whether the economy is actually strong or is weak. So that's how come that statement is true. Like he said later on, is true the time he made the statement, and it's true as we talk now. Okay, so it's not just exchange rate per se, but then exchange rate is just one of the indicators to show that your economy is relatively doing well. So we call it what? Macroeconomic indicators. Exchange rate is one of the the key or the major indicator. We move to unemployment rate is also one of the indicators, inflation, one of the indicators. Then normally we talk about the GDP growth rate, also at one of the indicators. So by the time we finish these particular lectures, you should have a fair idea of these macroeconomic indicators. So the key topics to be covered in this section are the definition of macro, the basic issues in what? Macro. Like I said, the GDP, inflation, unemployment, and the goals of what? Macroeconomic policy. So for the reference, you are cool to go and read the Mankiw 2012 Principle of Macroeconomics edition 6, or you may want to do Bain and Parkins. Bain and Parkins, I think you can get the Bain and Parkins. I'm not sure of the first one. Bain and Parkins, I think you can get the soft copy. For those who want to read further and get much understanding from whatever is in the slides, you are free to do so. I can see someone's hand up. Friends?
Hello, sir.
Yeah.
Please, I wanted to know if the class is being recorded, and please, if it's not, can we please have it recorded?
Record. Is it possible you can, hold on, let me check. But why record not encourage everybody to join the class? But let me just see if it's possible.
Someone is recording.
Someone is recording.
Yeah, someone is recording it.
But who is the person so that we can chase the person for it later on? Can I know the person, or can the class know so that maybe later on the person can share? Because I'm not the one recording. So if who is recording?
There is no one is recording. No one is recording. Oh, someone is recording.
Can you please
check
who is recording?
Well, I'm unable to record. I don't know.
No one is recording.
Yeah, but myself and get understanding beyond what has been put in these slides, okay, and what have been addressed. So I can see Sandra's hand up. Sandra, what is it? Sandra Boni, your hands are up. All right, that's fine. I think the hand is down now. I can't hear anything. So let's make progress. Okay. So we move to the definition. I think I've given a fair definition of the micro, but then the microeconomic study of behavior of individual, small, isolated, and disaggregated units. So we talk about the firm, an individual producing unit. We talk about the industry, a group of firm. So when you are making a firm level analysis, making an individual analysis, you are making an analysis based on the production of certain commodity. Okay, you are making an analysis of a particular goods, the supply of a particular good, the profit, the cost involved in producing some goods. Those ones are all at a micro level. So the statement here, micro, the study of behavior of individual, small, isolated, and disaggregated unit. It is not what? Aggregated, disaggregated, okay, unit. The term microeconomics and the macroeconomics was first given by what? Ragnar and Ragnar Fritz in 1933. This one becomes a history behind micro and what? And macro. And the common Keynes, Professor Keynes, okay, one of the major brains behind macro. Here they say what is known as what? A father of modern macroeconomics, okay? And most of his thoughts were expressed in the book General Theory of Employment, Interest, and Money in 1936. And these are books written, I think, after the First World War or something like that, okay? Trying to address the macroeconomic issues during the World War, okay? this book actually sought to settle or to address the problems that comes during the World War, where there is depression, high employment, there's a slower or low level of growth. So Keynes actually came out with this book to explain ways by various countries or the world can bounce back to their feet. Okay, so this book is one of the contributors to the current macroeconomic studies. For those of you that will proceed beyond this level 100, we will have to learn a lot about Keynes and his ideologies. Okay, but for now, let's just leave it there as a history that Keynes is one of the most major contributors in modern days macroeconomy. So the term macro, they said is what? It's a Greek word which means what? Macros, meaning large. The study studies the behavior of the overall economy. Like I said, we are talking about how the economy as a whole is growing, price level, exchange rate. We are talking about unemployment. Unemployment issue is not an individual issue, it's the behavior of economic aggregates such as what? Income, consumption, investment, and the overall level of what price. When we are talking about overall level of price, to what they are referring to inflation. Okay, we have a stable inflation rate or a skyrocketing inflation rate like we had in 2022, where our inflation was about 50%. Okay, I'm sure when we finish about this inflation thing, you should be able to understand the major reasons for this increase in inflation and the cost of inflation. Now, it deals with what? Aggregate behavior, which is described as the behavior of all household and put together. Okay, so the macro, we are talking about household and the firm put together, their behavior. Okay, all the household, so the productivity of the country, all the household, all the firms, what they're able to produce in a year becomes what? Our GDP for that particular year. So we are putting of things together to understand. So now I have.
I had wanted to ask your slide is not synchronized with the lecture, but now it's okay. It has appeared.
All right, that's fine. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Okay, so we can proceed now. Wow, what is happening? To realize that my slides is behind. Possibly you may want to log out and log in. Okay, possibly you may log out and log in. Okay, so let's make progress. So we want to find out the scope. Okay, the scope is telling you that we are trying to address macroeconomics. Scope is, or indirectly, I think that the unemployment issues are within the scope of what? Macroeconomics. So why are millions of people and the government? Okay, what role does the government play? And what role does the various economic policies that have been churned out by government, what role are they playing? The major policies, we have various policies, but those various policies could be what? Grouped into two major policies. Is either a fiscal policy or it is what? A monetary policy. A fiscal policy comes from what? The central government, normally spearheaded by Ministry of Finance. But then the monetary policy is spearheaded by what? The central bank of a particular country, in this case, Bank of Ghana. So monetary policy is championed by Bank of Ghana in Ghana here, but then the fiscal policy is what is championed by the central government, which is championed by the Ministry of Finance. Okay, those two policies, how did they relate? What are their aims? Addressing these issues falls under the scope of what? Macroeconomic. Can the government do something about recession when things are not going on well? Are there certain policies government can put in place to reverse it so that we expand production? And how can that be done? All these issues fall under what? Macroeconomics. How being part of a global economic system affects the economy of a country. Okay, this is also very important as economic students. Why do we hear those days that Russia-Ukraine war is impacting the reason why prices are increasing? Okay, addressing these issues all fall under what? Fall under macroeconomics. Okay, now the current issue now is what? Israel and Iran war. Okay, the possible war that is coming out between Iran and Israel. Okay, you hear a lot of analysts saying that it has the potential to affect the prices of fuel. Okay, because it's understand that those countries are the major source of oil. Okay, and it is expected that if the war can emerge between these two countries, it's going to affect the flow of fuel to the various parts of the world, and that will affect, the basic knowledge you have in the microeconomics. When supply reduce and demand is still high, price will increase. I don't know, I just chip it in. If supply reduces but demand remains static, the effect you expect is that prices will increase. And that's the major reason why people are saying that if the war should
Hello,
should emerge. Yeah.
Hello, sir. Please. Okay.
Yeah. So, John, can you talk?
Sir, I'm okay. I wanted to ask if you are sharing your screen, but now it's okay.
Yeah, so what I was saying is that if you can't see my screen, possibly it may be from your side. So just log out and log in, you will see my screen. Okay.
Now I'm okay.
Right.
I'm okay. Okay.
All right, that's fine. So let's make progress. So we are saying that international relation, okay, you are in your own country, you are not fighting any country, but two countries war affect you here, okay? And those analyses are how we call international relation, and all of those fall within the scope of macroeconomic. And what is government budget deficit? How does it affect the economy? We call something budget surplus, budget deficit. But for me, since I entered tertiary and started following the budget of Ghana, there has not been any point in time where government of Ghana is having a budget surplus. We are always running a budget deficit. How those budget deficit has affected the economy over the period? We may not be able to do all this, but then they all fall within the scope of macroeconomics. But then those who will go beyond level 100 economics and go to 200, 300, 400 can be rest assured that how budget deficit affects the economy will be studied at a point in time. Whether budget deficit is bad, whether it's wrong, whether budget surplus is superior than budget deficit, and if the deficit is bad, why does developing countries, including Ghana, run a budget deficit over the period? Those issues could be addressed within macroeconomic scope. Now, in summary, okay, Patrick Kwesi Isaiah Franny, what is the issue?
Sir, please, I can't see the screen.
Yeah. So if you can't see this, I'm saying is that it may be from your side. The screen is. You've done that, but I still can't see my screen.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, let me see what I can do. Hold on.
Okay.
I want to put it in the presentation mode and see.
Okay.
Use MTN.
Use MTN.
I'm sure he's using Vodafone. The
Yeah,
Vodafone
Vodafone,
network.
Telecom.
The
That's
Vodafone is
fine.
bomb. It's a bomb. That one
That's
is
fine.
bomb.
That's fine. But Vodafone is my network, so that's fine. Let's continue. So, well, your friends are saying it may be your internet, so check your internet and see. Okay, check it. So, the scope of macroeconomics, this is a summary. All the lengthy things I've just spoken about, this is the summary. So, it includes the theory of income and employment. Okay, the theory of money. The total money is in circulation. So we call something money supply, money demand. Certainly this semester we will learn something a little about what money demand and what the money supply. The theory of general price level, which is the inflation we are talking about. The theory of economic growth. Economic growth, how do you measure economic growth? Normally we measure economic growth by change in GDP. If I produce, or if the country produced 2 billion worth of goods this year, and next year we are producing 3 billion, you don't need a software to tell you there have been an improvement in what? In economic growth. So normally we measure economic growth based on what? The level of what GDP within the country. And the final aspect, the theory of international trade. Okay, why will Ukraine and Russia war affect Ghana? Okay, it's because we import certain goods from them and we also export certain commodities to them. So by that effect, import, export fall under how we call what? International trade. We trade within the country and we trade across the country. When we trade across the country, then we are talking about what? International trade. So I don't know if I can pause here, receive some few questions before we continue. I think that will be in place. We have done 10 slides out of 29. So I think it's fair. I get some questions. Then if there's no question, we proceed anyway. But then I will just have to give you the opportunity to ask some questions. Then we can proceed. You may want to realize there are some of you that may even have in-depth knowledge of what I'm talking about. If you want to expert, but I don't talk too much. If you have some 1 minute contribution, you can also do. So the floor is open. Raise up your hand. I call you, then you do, so that it can be in order. The floor is open. Okay, we have Yvonne. Yvonne, is it Brino or Breno Edu? Unmute and talk.
Good evening, sir. Please, I
Good
have a
evening, Yvonne. Okay.
My question is that I want to know the effect of the fiscal and monetary policy on the economic growth.
The effect of fiscal and monetary policy.
Yes, please.
On economic growth.
Yes.
That one you have taken us far. Okay, so to summarize, normally when there is excessive money in the system, okay, in the sense that I think currently, how is being happening in the country is that there's excessive money in the country, as in Ghana City in the country. So what they are trying to do is to reduce money in circulation. So how do we reduce money in circulation? And I told you earlier that when we talk about money supply, money demand, or monetary policy, okay, monetary policy is normally about what? Money demand and money supply within the country. And that is within the purview of what? The central bank. In Ghana is Bank of Ghana. Okay, now if Bank of Ghana realize that there's a high level of money in circulation, which is mostly causing inflation, okay, normally what happens is that they find a way to take the money from the people indirectly, okay. How do you get the money from circulating? First thing is, at times you increase interest rate. If you have 1,000 Ghana in your bank account that you are not using for anything, and you know that 1,000 Ghana can attract an interest of, let's say, 20%, okay, holding it there without using it is at a high cost because you can invest it into any bank and get it. Now, if you use that to buy maybe something like a bond, that money is no more in your pocket to spend. So indirectly, an increase in interest rate is taking money from your pocket. So you don't have physical money and be buying unnecessary stuff. You are not investing it. But now, alternatively, when the Bank of Ghana realized that there's scarce money in the system, they also find a way of what? Pumping a lot of money into the system, right? Now, so currently, what Bank of Ghana is doing is that they are buying, so they are selling. So those who have done a bit of Econs in the JHS, no, not JHS, SHS, okay, we call something OMO, open market operation, okay, where Bank of Ghana will be selling bond out to what? The public. When Bank of Ghana is selling out bond, okay, what it means is that is taking excess money from the system. If you have excess money, you want to buy bond from Bank of Ghana that will yield an interest in the near future. So when the year comes, the Bank of Ghana will pay you the money and the interest. Okay, so at that point in time, you may not have that money available to buy any good within it. So in that case, the Bank of Ghana is taking a lot of money from the system, reducing money supply in the system. But if alternative time, Bank of Ghana realizes that no, there's no money in the system, this is where Bank of Ghana now tries to buy from them. Okay. No, Bank of Ghana rather try to what? Now is selling. So you go and buy. Okay. Now, if you want to pump money, then Bank of Ghana will now buy from there, now giving them CD. So you are a company operating. So Bank of Ghana will come and buy some share from your company and give you hard cash so that money can be circulating in the system. So that's one way we can use monetary policy to meet certain target. Let's go to fiscal policy. Fiscal policy, normally we use what? Like I said, we normally use fiscal policy from the side of finance. Okay, so we call something expansionary. This is a bit of what we are learning, but since you asked, I'll just talk a little about it. We have something we call expansionary policy, or expansionary fiscal policy, and contractional. Okay, expansionary fiscal policy involves where government increases or expands its expenditure base. Now, think about it. If government expenditure increase, okay, how does it affect the economy? Government increase the construction of road, building of hospitals, paying a lot of bills, increasing the salary of people. What happens? The people have a lot of money in their pockets, they go into production, but then if you do that excessively, that's what also result into inflation anyway. But when government realizes that there's a recession, there's a way it can motivate people to get money to expand production. That's true expansionary. But then excessively doing that can also result into allocation. Now, but currently, what Ministry of is that they realize that there's a high level of inflation. So whilst let me mention that whilst monetary policy, the Bank of Ghana is trying to siphon a lot of money from the system, what the Ministry of Finance is also currently doing is that it's also not spending excessively on staff. So when you listen to the news, you realize that a lot of people are demanding, contracts have not been paid, District Assembly Common Fund have been promised to be paid, but still it's not paid. A lot of money has not been released. So when government is not spending, we call that one contractionary what? Fiscal policy. Contractional is contracting. So it's like you're contracting, meaning your expenditure has decreased. Expansion, your expenditure has increased. Okay, so when government expenditure increase, it ends up in the pocket of what? The citizens. When government is pursuing contractional policy, it ends up what? Denying citizens excessive money in their pocket. Okay, and those things are used to what? In a way to control economic growth and order. So it's not only about just economic growth. You may be gaining a growth, but then at times you have to weigh the growth against the implication. Your economy will be growing, but then as it is growing, inflation is also increasing. So you have to get the balance. Yeah, expansionary monetary policy may result into what? Economic growth, but then excessively doing that will also result into a high level of inflation, and inflation also come at a cost. Okay, so most of these things, when we go forward, possibly beyond the level 100 economists, you get to understand beyond this particular, that's how it affects the economy. That's clear with you.
Thank you.
All right. So I think I saw a different hand. Beyond that, we can continue. Do you have any other hands up? Do we still have Sophia in this class? Sophia, last semester there was a certain Sophia. Then can I call? Is he forgotten the other name? Is it Sophia and well, I've forgotten the other name. I don't know whether they are HEC student or they are part of the IT student. What is that? Charles.
They are here.
Charles will say. Charles.
Yeah, the feedback is not coming from me.
But your mic is on.
Yeah,
So
I was
just
just
mute your
saying
mic.
that fire is here. So fire.
Samolata.
Yeah. Good evening, sir.
Big man, let me hear from you.
Okay. Sir, about the budget deficit.
Yeah.
And I think that happens when the government spend more than the revenue that it receives.
Yeah, that is exactly it.
Yes. Which means that the government have to go for borrowing, to go and borrow money to come and sort out his excessive using, his spending.
Yeah.
Now, my question is, can the government not spend just within the revenue limit as much as you receive?
Okay.
Why is it always that? Why is it always that? Because we have been hearing this in all the time. Government budget deficit. So can't we just plan to spend within their income?
All right, thank you very much. I think that's a very complex, it's a correct analysis, but it's a complex question. Because, well, you made a simplified version that budget deficits you borrow to finance. I think you can also print more money to finance. So there's another means by which you can finance your deficit. The first way is what? You borrow either internally or externally. But then another alternative that the NPP being used around 2022 thereabout is printing excessive money to finance government budget. Okay, and all of them come with their bad side. So what you realize is that the high level of inflation we experience in 2022, hitting 54% inflation rate. Every price is increasing here and there. You go and buy something, by next week you go, the price has add up. Those things are as a result of the means the government use to finance its excessive spending. Now, you're asking why won't government spend within the limit? They are even the US, okay, even the US and the big companies or the big countries at times or mostly also go forward these budget deficit issues. And they will tell you that there's no country in the world that doesn't. Just that the ability to pay varies. The ability for Ghana to pay its debt varies from the ability of US to pay. Okay, I wouldn't want to go so much into those details. And maybe those who will go further will have more details explanation about it. But then shallowing, let me just put it like that. There are certain times that you cannot spend within your limit because as you are there, as a country, people need hospitals somewhere. You can't say that they will not give them or they should die out of sickness or anything. People need better road. And don't forget, we are in a democratic world. Or we win power today. You are thinking about retaining power tomorrow. Okay. Bright. All right, let's continue. So okay, that's why. Just mute yourself. All right, so All we are saying is that because we are in democratic world, your roads are bad and you are putting pressure on government, you either do my road for me or forget the next election, right? So they are certain economic decisions that may be right, but if you take it, it is not politically what? Reasonable to take those decisions. Okay, so most of the decisions that are being taken are mostly are motivated by what? Political, they are most mostly political decisions, but not economic decisions. Okay, though there are certain economic decisions that will allow you to spend beyond what you expect to get. So it's a budget. So budget is telling you that before you even start spending, you are projecting that you are going to spend more than you are going to get. That is what it means. Budget, you have not started spending, but then you are preparing to spend more than you are preparing to earn. Indirectly, that's what it means. So if you want to spend more, there are three ways you can spend more. If you want to spend more, one, you either borrow. Two, you either what? Have to print more money, hard cash, go to Bank of Ghana and say, oh, Bank of Ghana, print me more money to do this project. Three, you have to increase tax. How do government get money? Government get money through taxation. Okay. The next thing you do is what? Increase the tax burden. That is where you see the e-levy, the bets, then all those things rationally. Government is increasing it because you need free SHS, you need teachers allowance, you need nurses training allowance, you need fee stress money, and all those things. You don't forget they are all government expenses, and it doesn't fall from heaven. Okay, those things don't fall from heaven. It comes from within. It comes from borrowing. It comes from increasing taxation. It comes from various means. These three means. It's either government increases its taxation. It's either government how do we call it, print more money or borrows. These three means. So if government is spending excessively, it will be from these three sources. Okay. I'm sure most of you over here would have received your money over the last week, over the week. Okay. When it's hitting your money, you are happy. But then when you are taking it individually, nobody thinks about the economy.
Nothing has come. Nothing has come.
Oh no, but at least one person should receive one. Someone should confirm he has
Sir,
received.
They only
please,
sent
sir,
a few.
please,
Nothing has come.
We have, sir, please, we haven't received anything, please.
Someone's own have landed, so
We
don't say
haven't,
you have
most
not
of the
got it.
students
we
haven't
haven't
received
received
this.
anything. We
Some have
haven't
received
received anything, sir, please.
Some have
So,
The
we
person
haven't
is saying
received
the
anything.
person is lying. The person is lying. I got
no.
my alert.
I've received. I received.
Hey,
Show us the proof.
wow,
Have
the
received.
person who are,
It
Drop
has
evidence.
landed.
Drop
the person
evidence.
who are received, show us the proof.
Oh, it's
How
Show
much
us
did
the
you
proof.
receive?
I
Drop
didn't
How much
receive
did
it,
you?
but I have
2,500 was paid.
Yes.
Show us the proof. Show us the proof.
I'm not
How
the
much
person
did
of
you
that
receive?
2,500 have been paid.
Charlie,
Okay,
you
that's
go.
just
It
by
has
the
been
way.
paid.
That's
It
just
has
by the way.
landed.
Let's go back to
I
Econs.
receive it.
Let's
They
go back
only
to
did
Econs.
that just to launch the program. They
Please,
only paid
it's
for
okay.
few
Let's
people.
move on.
Let's move
Time
on. Let's
is
move on.
going.
Let's move on. So for anything at all, some have been paid, others have not been. And it was clear. I learned 15,000 who have been paid. And we know the first year student, even University of Ghana alone may have captured all the 15,000 students. But let's not go into that. But I understand. Some few has been paid and others will follow very soon. And those monies looks like a free money, but government is not Father Christmas. Government will have to get those monies from different sources, right? And those are political promises. And for you to hold on to power, you need to honor these promises. And that is why we keep on going in circle, okay? Ghanaians, some of us also want the free things, but the cost of those free things, we don't ask, right? It's not only Ghanaians. Naturally, nobody want to even pay tax. But when you get free things, you want to get. But the fact is, government itself does not, though they produce money or they print money. When you produce excessive money, it also comes with its consequences. When I was, I think, doing economics first year, I think someone approached me and said, every day we are saying there's no money in Ghana, there's no money in Ghana. Why won't government just go and print more money and share to people? Okay, the impact is higher level of inflation, which we'll study into details when we get there. Okay, it is not just simple that, oh, people are not having money, so the printing machine is there, let's just go and start printing and dump into the economy. It doesn't work that way. right? So at times you print more money, at times you borrow, at times you increase tax. That is where when the previous government have printed more money, is causing more problem, but they still want to spend more. Then they want to do bet e-levy. Then from there they go to bet levy or whatever they call it. Okay, all those things are just to enable them to spend more. Okay, it's just to enable them to spend more. So in this case, when the NDC government is okay, we are coming to cut off the e-levy and the betting tax, we are going to take it off. As someone from economics background, I was wondering, how are they going to finance? Because these are major ways of getting. Because when you watch, they are spending. There are two ways you can do. You can reverse budget deficit. It's either you reduce spending or you increase your revenue. Okay, or you can do both. Whilst you reduce spending, you increase revenue. You can do both so that you can get to where you get a surplus. Right now, it is clear in government forming machinery that okay, they are finding a way of cutting down expenditure, but those expenditure cuts is not enough compared to the kind of expenditure they are coming to improve again. For instance, there's nothing like free stress during Akufo-Addo's time. You are bringing it on board. Meanwhile, you have cut the e-levy, you have cut the betting tax and all those things. So I was actually foreseeing this kind of challenges. So I wasn't surprised when after gaining power and they're able to stabilize the economy, they are coming back, okay, we want to impose another tax on a petroleum product, 1 cedi per liter. So when I go to the pump and buy 5 liters, indirectly I've paid 5 cedis to the government. Right? So people are trying to argue, oh, won't the e-levy be better than the petroleum? Because for the e-levy there, you can avoid it. Instead of sending the money to someone, you can walk from a long distance and give the money to the person. But for the tax, the fuel tax and all product tax, you cannot, because if you are going from Accra to Howolu walk, you will still have to pay, and those will be put on the fare. Okay, so those ones are argument that you can make politically, whether the e-levy is better than this. That's not what but then indirectly, you as economic students have to have the view that, oh, if government is spending more, then it means that you have to pay more as a tax. If you don't want to pay as more as a tax, then you have to be expecting that government is going to borrow for the future, where you also have to find a way of paying. So basically, that is it. But I think the explanation has gone so much. Let's go back to the slides and complete whatever we have. Then maybe I can take final questions. Then we end the class. So we have this kind of trend. So what we see over here is what we call a line graph. Okay, it tries to depict the trend. So here is an example of historical trend. So if here is the world growth rate over the period, you realize that it's not a straight line. It goes up, down. So these are the fluctuation we are talking about. Okay, it goes up, down. But at the end of the day, you realize that it is rising. In the long run, you realize that it is what? Generally rising to the top. So as time goes on, you expect that what? GDP or the growth rate will keep increasing, right? But then it is not stable. There are times that it's not as smooth as it's supposed to be. But you can see the trend that it is upward sloping. But then there are certain trends that you cannot even see any upward sloping. It goes far up, come far down. So you cannot see whether it's actually rising or it is falling. So this is an example of a trend, and we call this a trend analysis, a line graph, okay? And we call it a trend analysis. Let's move to the next one. What the next one has over here is what? It's the GDP of US, okay? So this is the GDP of US from 1970 to 2000, okay? From 1970 to 2000. What do you see? Recession is when the economic activity has gone down, and expansion is when the economic activity has gone up. Okay, so what do you see over here? You realize that in general, US GDP has increased over the period, but it is not smooth. There are times GDP of US, even the US that we all look up to, there are times their GDP goes down, there are times their GDP goes up, and it has that kind of fluctuations from this graph you can see. Now there is a historic expansion here, which starts from somewhere the early 1990s to 2000, where it looks like they have been consistently economic expansion. Okay, so here they are saying the longest economic expansion on record, starting from somewhere early 1990s to somewhere 2000. Okay, you see that consistently there have been an increase in the level of what GDP within those period. Okay, but then nevertheless, you see the fluctuation, it goes up and comes what. Now let's go to that of Ghana. How do you see the fluctuation is even higher in terms of Ghana? At times it looks like it's close to zero. Okay, so how do you see here? The blue line is the growth rate. I don't know if by now you understand what the growth rate is and what the GDP itself is. The growth rate of GDP fluctuates even more higher than what the GDP itself. Okay, so the blue one is what the growth rate. You can see, you cannot really tell whether the growth rate is rising over the period or is stable or is reducing. Okay, the fluctuation is very high. Somewhere 1961, growth rate was quite high. Then 65 thereabout, it has gone down. Then go up. So you can see those fluctuations over the period. Okay, I think, yeah. So when you take the left side, GDP has, the growth rate has actually been in negative. Okay, in 95, no, 65, sorry, in 1965, the growth rate has been in negative, close to -5. In somewhere 68, 69, GDP growth rate is almost zero. In 70, GDP growth rate is lower than zero. It is in negative. But the lowest since 1961 to date, the lowest growth rate here is in what? Negative, I think less than, close to -15, at least beyond -10. Okay, beyond -10 is one of what? The historic down of Ghana's what? GDP. But then I think from, let me say, from 85 going, okay, from 1985 going, though we still experience the fluctuation, there have not been any point in time where we experience negative inflation. It has been close to zero. It has been close to zero somewhere in 15. Our GDP has been very small. I think that should be around 2 point something. But then that is the lowest we have had in recent years. 2 point, it's not in negative, it's 2 point something. Okay. So it has been fluctuating over the, that's the GDP growth. But then the GDP itself has been gently what? Increasing, as you can see. I'm colorblind, but I don't know whether it's a light blue or I don't know, but you can see the difference, okay? Okay, so the same thing has been put in a different way, just the GDP growth rate of Ghana. And this, you can see it clearly. The negative was in, the highest negative GDP growth rate was in 1975. You can see 1975, our GDP growth rate was in around -12. Okay, well, next historic one will be 92. 92, then 93. Some of us are not enough during 93, 83, sorry. But then the 83 recession still remains because we talk to people, 83 was not easy, or 83. And some of us, before we entered the area of economics, study economics, way back in SHS, GHS, our parents consistently refer to the food where you have to keep to know that 83 there was what? Economic recession. Okay, you need not do it. I'm sure some of you within this class, I don't know if recent parents normally mention, but I can say for a fact that my parents will normally refer to it. It was not easy how you are behaving. If 83 would have died out of hunger and all those things, I don't know for you. Okay. Okay, some of us just heard it even before entering the SHS to even talk less of coming to study Econs in the University of Ghana, right? So basically, this is just a trend analysis to see. And this one, you cannot see over the period if Ghana's growth rate has been consistently increasing or it has been stable or it has been reducing. But for reducing, you know it has not been reducing. But we can say when we want to fix a trend line, a long run line, it may be close to maybe a gentle rise in growth rate, okay? But I know for consistency that it may either be static or a gentle rise, but it cannot be what? A falling aspect, okay? Then we move to unemployment in US, okay? Unemployment in US, you can see the fluctuation, it goes up and down. The high employment happens around 1932, 33, that's after the First World War, okay? So it was during the First World War when there's this Great Depression that Keynes came out with his book, okay? The Keynes book that we talk about, he wrote in 1936, okay? Keynes book sought to what? To address this Great Depression. Pardon me? Okay, so Keynes book that he wrote, the main target of the book is to what? To handle this Great Depression. So you can see the trend fluctuating. The unemployment is not stable. It goes as high as what? 25% and come as low as close to 2%. And it has been fluctuating over the period. Let's see Ghana's unemployment rates. Though we don't have I'll not say, I'll say we don't have a credible unemployment data because statistical service will give you a different one, a different person will give you a different one, but this is what is present, that we have our unemployment rate increasing to somewhere above is provided by data, so we work with it. Then the unemployment reduced to somewhere close to 4%. So it has been around that and increase. I think proud to 2024 election, they will tell you that unemployment is higher than that because the definition of unemployment, at times when we go straightly by it, it may be what? Higher than it. And most people in Ghana may be underemployed, which is not covered. Someone has completed university, did computer science, that we are supposed, he used the knowledge acquired to do something worth the computer science, may go into buy and sell, import from China and come and sell for in Ghana at a higher price and make money. Someone may venture into mobile money. I'm not saying business is bad, but then you've gone to education, you are educated to use the knowledge to do something in your field of area, but complete and leave whatever you have done and doing some people. Well, I may even say myself, there are certain jobs that I do that far goes beyond someone who has or masters in economics. And right, you have any question?
No,
Well,
sir.
let's move. Okay, let's move on. Let's move on. Okay, so inflation. Okay, inflation in US. Inflation in US. I doubt if Ghana have ever had a negative inflation. Okay, but the inflation in US, you can see, also fluctuates. And the highest level of inflation has been something close to what? 25%. I think Ghana's highest rate of inflation is above 100. I think 100 and something percent anyway. Okay. I think for the high around the 83, 82 thereabout, Ghana recorded inflation rates over 100, over 110. Okay, but US has the greatest from 1900 to 2000. The highest is a little close to 25, not even up to 25, and at a point has a negative inflation. A negative inflation is what we talk about, what we call deflation. So we have inflation, deflation, and disinflation. When we get there, we will cross. Okay. Now, but to give a fair view, when they say that there is deflation, that means that prices are decreasing, disinflation. So instead of pricing increasing, prices are what? Are reducing. Then we say there is what? Deflation. Okay. But we have something we call disinflation. Disinflation is telling you that the rate of inflation is reducing. Like what is happening in Ghana currently is disinflation. Inflation started from 50 to 20 to 18, and currently we heard that inflation is in 13. Okay, what it means is that inflation is still positive, but then it is reducing over the period. That is disinflation. But when inflation enters negative, then you have entered a point where prices of goods in general are falling, and that can be referred to what? Deflation. Deflation. And I wonder, maybe I'm not privy to that. I wonder if we have gotten to a point where the general price level in Ghana reduces, where what we call deflation. I wonder if it have ever happened in the case of what? Ghana. Interestingly, I think it is here in 1967. Interestingly, I think there is a little negative over here, but I think that should be around -5. Then beyond that, we've had the highest, yeah, like I said, 83, close to 120. I think, yeah, 123 or something like that in history. Okay. In 83, we have the highest level of what? Inflation, around 123%, right? And in recent time, this data, I'm not too sure of it. Inflation getting to zero. In 2018, I'm not too sure of this figure, but then per what the graph is presenting, inflation rate close to what? Zero or equal to zero in 2018. Well, I'll need to do a further check, okay? Because inflation being zero, I know we have ever recorded single-digit inflation 8%, 7%, but inflation being zero, I really doubt. I have my doubts, but that is it. You also have internet to check the inflation rate of Ghana in 2018. I really doubt if it is zero, but per the graph, it is zero that is being indicated here. All right, so let's go to the macroeconomic goals. What's the goal of macroeconomic? Yeah.
So what does it mean when it hits zero?
When it gets zero, what it means is that in general, price level are static. It's not increasing, it's not reducing in general.
Oh, okay.
Right? If it is zero, it means that prices in general are not increasing, they are not reducing too. But then it does not necessarily, okay, let me just give this. It does not necessarily mean that not a single price will not increase and not a single price. So it's the average. So while some are increasing, some are reducing, when you find the average, you realize that it cut across, so it looks like nothing is increasing. Okay, so that is why you cannot go to market today, buy cassava, and it's 5 cedis, tomorrow go and it is 10 cedis, you come back and be shouting that there's inflation. No. It may happen that it's only the cassava price that has increased. But when you're talking about inflation, we are talking about in general, the whole price level in general has increased. So it's not like one product has increased, so there's inflation, right?
Okay, thank you.
Because inflation, we're going to study how to calculate inflation anyway. We are going to calculate inflation in the next 4 or 5 lectures. We should learn how to calculate inflation, so that when you find yourself in statistical service and you are supposed to be calculating inflation, you will not be seeing it as a story or anything. We will calculate inflation in the short run. Okay. I'm sure in our 3rd, 4th lectures we should be learning how to calculate inflation. Emmanuel, your hand is up.
Please, I wanted to say that the inflation in 2018 was 9.4%.
Okay, that's fine. That's fine. I think it should be that, because I know it should be single digit, but zero there. But that's what the graph is showing actually. And that's what the graph is showing. So this data, I want to believe it's a correct data, but I don't know why they got this correct. They got this wrong. Okay. It could be close to 0, at in single digit. 9.
I think it's not 0, because when you look at the intervals from 0 to 20, so there's a huge intervals over there. So I don't think it's 0.
But when you look at the line, you see, yeah, 9, listen, 9 is almost close to 10. So it should be half of the 20. I don't know if you get my argument. If it should be 2 or 3 and it's like that, I'll understand, right? But this is 9. 9 is close to half of that. So when you do the analysis, this is not close to half of the line. But I understand the angle you are coming from. Okay. I understand the angle you are coming from. But there's something wrong with the graph anyway. But we can move on. Thank you very much.
You're welcome, sir.
Okay, so let's move on. We are moving on to the 3 main goals of every economy, okay, or the macroeconomic goals. Output growth. So everybody wants the economy to grow. My GDP grow at this point when you are going to election, and within your times of rule, what was the GDP growth rate? What was the inflation rate? What is the unemployment? And these 3, I think they've just omitted exchange rate. Okay, but the 3 major ones, when election is coming, that's what most talk about. Your GDP growth rate, the economy have grown at this point, and now your economy have grown at this point, and my economy has not grown to this point because Russia-Ukraine war. My economy has not grown because COVID has come. So those kind of analysis is all talking about what? Economic growth, and we are talking about inflation. Inflation. There's no day that you wake up without hearing about inflation. If you listen to business news, I'm sure they do update of inflation update almost every day, right? Then you go to unemployment. Unemployment became a huge talk about issue, and unemployment has driven most of the policies in Ghana from Kufuor's time, where we started this youth employment thing. Okay, Kufuor's youth employment issue is just to curb the unemployment rate of youth. Okay, and since then, there is no political manifesto that does not target unemployment issues. The NDC's 24 hours economy, one of the major targets is to what? To reduce unemployment, because when you are doing 24 hours, it means that currently the 12 hours we are running or 8 hours we are running, you are going to recruit that same people to run the second half of the day. So it means that you are going to expand your employment rate, and that is going to reduce what? So there's no policy, or there's no how do we put it? There's no political manifesto that does not capture something on unemployment. Okay, and mostly they always use the youth. They always take the youth. NDC, majority of their campaign promises, their manifesto, majority, the 1 million coders trainers, they are all targeted towards what? Reducing unemployment. Because if you are a coder, you can be in the comfort of your zone and be employed in US or anywhere, not to even travel to get jobs and all those things there. The free apprenticeship program that they are enrolling, okay, all those things are something that are targeted towards what? Reducing unemployment and empowering the youth economically. So those are the 3 major macroeconomic policies, okay?
Say.
Yeah?
Say, please, so you see the 1 million coders, they will not give you job. They'll give you
certificate. So the
argument
I'm making here is the 1 million coders testing is still targeted towards unemployment indirectly, in the sense that they are trying to what? Improve the skills of these people to become employable, right? So that in any case, you could be at the comfort of your home and get some online job somewhere and be doing coding for someone. You need not to even travel to get certain job. Okay, so
and so who said they were coding and they will teach you how to code there?
No, listen. I'm not telling that they are going to teach you how to. I've not even been to their class. I don't know what they are doing. Okay. But then what I'm arguing here is that the nutshell, okay, the target of the 1 million coders, okay, in a nutshell, is targeted towards reducing what? Unemployment, because it increases their employability. You have earned a degree in computer science. You have earned degree in economics, you have earned degree in business administration. Okay, adding the skills of being a coder or whatever it is increases your ability to gain employment.
Okay.
Okay, so I don't know what they are doing, but then the nutshell, okay, that particular policy is targeted towards reducing unemployment in the country, right? The same way the National Apprenticeship Program, okay, is directed as what? Empowering the people, get them to employed at various places. We go and learn electrician, then you also get something to do at the end of the day. I don't stay idle. Okay, so most of the policies, I will not say how, but majority of what the manifestos are targeted towards what? Reducing what? Unemployment. And it started not today. Okay, and I can still promise that the 2028 election that will come, there will not be any manifesto that will not target issues of employment or unemployment issues. Okay, so indirectly, that's what I'm driving at. Okay. All right, so we move on to at least explaining the various good outputs, okay, output growth. But then how do we even do the output growth? Each government or economy is interested in increasing the productivity of goods and services, both in the short run and in the long run, okay? Now, in increasing output, the ultimate goal is to get closer and closer to economy's potential output and is the maximum sustainable output. So we have what we call actual output and potential output. Potential output here is telling you that when you put all your resources, okay, when you put all your resources into effective use, okay, the highest level of output you can reach, that's what the potential. Okay, so there's one key term. Okay, there's one key term, potential. That's why they highlighted the potential output. Now, which is, so this from here, which it is trying to explain what is meant by potential output, which is the maximum sustainable output. So when you say maximum sustainable output, it's not like the growth rate that we have experienced in 2011. Okay, the growth rate that Ghana chalk in 2011, one of the highest, I think 13 or something, I need to cross check, was due to the discovery of what? Oil. Okay, that's the time we started producing oil in what? In commercial quantity. So a first time jump will be seen. Okay, but those ones are not sustainable. But here we are talking about when you put your resources, all your resources into what? Into use. Okay, effectively using all your resources, what you can what? Produce for a longer, something that's sustainable, something that can be there, not something I produce and the following year it goes down. Okay, so it's the potential output, is the maximum sustainable output of goods and services that a nation can what? Produce. When you put all your resources into effective use, the highest rate you can reach is what we are talking as what? As a potential output. Vida, your hand is up.
Yeah, hello, sir. Please, we'll be having class in the next 2 minutes. 1 minute.
All right, that's fine. I'll rush through then. Which
Thank
class
you.
is that?
Statistics.
Statistics for IT students.
Yes, please.
Okay. The IT, they'll also give you some 5 minutes to join, so don't worry. Let me take 5 minutes and clear so that we can close.
Thank you.
All right, thank you too. So the rest is going to read, I think I've explained in depth almost all the distance. So increasing a country's output. So I said earlier, how do you even measure the growth? Okay, you measure the growth by what? Measuring, normally the economic growth is measured by using GDP. Your GDP is 1 million this year. Next year is 2 million. It has increased. There have been, it is 2 million yesterday. Today is what? 1 million has reduced. So we use those things. So increasing a country's output towards this potential output is important because it has a direct impact on poverty, standard of living of people within the country through the real GDP. Okay, when your output increases, direct. Okay, when your output increases, there's more money. If there's more money, poverty will reduce, and standard of living will improve. Standard of living will what? Will increase. Okay, When there's a reduction in poverty, there'll be what? An increase in standard of living. Please, standard of living is the direct opposite of our cost of living. When cost of living is increasing, your standard of living will fall, okay? But if cost of living reduces, your standard of living will what? Will increase, right? Now, also a sustained increase in output level increases the country's ability to finance education, public health, environmental improvement, etc., which go a long way to improve the general quality of life. So the rest of these things are just something you can really understand. To achieve this goal, governments are usually concerned about the following: short run and what? Long run changes output. Here, the government is more concerned about fluctuation in the business cycle. Okay, so what is the business cycle? Let me just jump. Fluctuation in the business cycle. For example, the government is interested in determining the expansionary and contractionary. So I mentioned expansionary and contractionary period, fiscal policy, okay? And then we move to knowing what is the causes of the cycle. So the fluctuation is here. This is the business cycle. You don't see any country that has a straight line like you see like a linear graph, okay? It goes up and down. So the lowest part of it is called the trough. Now, if it is expanding, we call it expansion, and the highest point before it starts reducing is the peak. So we have the trough and we have what? The peak. We have the expansion, that is where the economy is expanding. Then we have the recession, then we come to the trough. Then, so one important thing is that the potential will be what? The line, okay? The potential growth rate will be what? How you, what? The growth trend, the line, the long run trend, okay? Now, if you are operating below, you should be certain that certainly what? You will expand. And if you are at the top, you should also expect that you will not be what? There forever. You will come down. So when economy is expanding, you have to have it in mind that the expansion will not be there forever, no matter the economy, be it the developed or developing economy, okay? Though the way they address their recession may be different, okay? But then every country faces this cycle. It goes up and down, and that's the fluctuation we talk about. When it is going down, we call it contractionary. When it is going up, it's expansionary. When it gets to the top, it is the peak. When it goes to the lowest, it's the trough. I hope that is clear. Now, after growth, we move to what we call the price stability, which is inflation. Okay, a lower inflation rate or a stable inflation rate is another important goal. That is why when you listen to most governments, their target is what? Their target is single-digit inflation. And going forward, you will learn that when we say we need inflation to go down, does not mean that inflation to be zero or inflation to go to what? Negative. Okay, inflation being negative and zero, it is not desirable. Okay, we still need inflation, but the inflation should be a single digit, somewhere 4, 5%, 6%, 7% is what is acceptable. But inflation that goes beyond 10, the double digit, is not what desirable. Okay, but then it is also for you to note that zero if inflation is also not what desirable, or negative inflation is also not desirable. But this is not a class to explain why and why not. So when we get to deal with inflation, I'm sure we will tackle those issues. So with high inflation, the purchasing power of money erodes quickly. Purchasing power of money eroding means that if there's inflation, price of things are increasing. It means that when you have 1,000 Ghana, in absolute term, that 1,000 Ghana is 1,000 Ghana tomorrow. It's 1,000 Ghana next year. But if there's inflation, what that 1,000 Ghana can buy today cannot buy the same thing next year. Okay, then it means that the purchasing power of the 1,000 Ghana you are having has reduced because the value of goods or the quantity of goods you could purchase with the 1,000 Ghana has reduced. When that happens, the purchasing power of the money has eroded. And if there's a high inflation, it erodes very fast. Okay, this forces people to spend money as soon as they get it. So when there's inflation, you don't want to hold physical money. The moment you get, you want to buy something so that the value does not what? dwindled or has not reduced. Okay, note. Okay, I think it's even here. Note, price stability is not necessarily the same as zero inflation, but instead, steady level of what? Low, moderate inflation is often regarded as ideal. Okay, it is expected that zero inflation is not desirable. Okay, though we want lower inflation, zero inflation is not desirable. Zero inflation is often undesirable in an economy, right? Now, the most common measure of inflation is the CPI. For this one, I wouldn't want us to waste my time on it because the CPI is a major topic. We're going to do how to use the CPI to calculate inflation will be done probably in the next 4 or 5 lectures. So I wouldn't waste so much time on this. And unemployment. Yeah, Joshua, your hand is up.
The lecturer for the next course is online waiting for us.
It should wait small.
Okay, sir. I hear you, sir.
2 minutes. It should wait small. 2 minutes. Okay. Now, maintaining a low rate of unemployment is another important task of. Okay. One thing I know is that we will treat most of this unemployment and this thing as a course, but then try and read. It's left with just 2 slides. Okay. Left with just 2 slides. So try and read on your own. If you have any challenge, I'm always available. Just hit me up with WhatsApp. Okay. Please, the call may not happen, so you hit me up with. Now, the class size has reduced again. I think we hit somewhere 120, but now it's reduced to 90. I wanted to deal with those who are outside Accra, but then because of the time, we'll do that one the next lecture. Nice meeting you, and I wish you well. But I will encourage all of you to try as much as possible and read through the slides. I'll let the course rep share what we have done today with you. But then the full slides from lecture 1 to lecture 10 will be loaded on the Sakai. Okay, will be loaded on Sakai.